To address concerns raised by manufacturers and other stakeholders regarding recent tax changes, President Bola Tinubu has signed 4 executive orders, including the Finance Act Order 2023. This defers the commencement date of the changes contained in the Act from May 23, 2023 to September 1, 2023. Special Advisor to the President on Special Duties, Communications and Strategy, Dele Alake, says this is to ensure the Act aligns with the 90-day notice period required by the National Tax Policy.
President Bola Tinubu, in fidelity to the pledge to put Nigerians at the center of government policies, has signed the following executive orders. Executive Order 1, the Finance Act Effective Date Variation Order 2023 has now deferred the commencement date of the changes contained in the Act from May 28, 2023 to September 1, 2023. This is to ensure adherence to the 90 days minimum advance notice for tax changes as contained in the 2017 National Tax Policy. Executive Order 2, the Customs Excise Tariff Variation Amendment Order 2023. This has also shifted the commencement date of the tax changes from March 27, 2023 to August 1, 2023, and also in line with the National Tax Policy. Order 3, the President has given an order suspending the 5% tax on telecommunication services as well as the excise duties escalation on locally manufactured goods. 4, further to his commitment to creating a business-friendly environment, the President has ordered the suspension of the newly introduced green tax by way of excise tax on single-use plastics, including plastic containers and bottles. In addition, the President has ordered the suspension of import tax adjustment levy on certain categories of vehicles.
Our aim is not to tax production. Our aim is to increase our productive activity, capacity to produce. Then we can tax our consumption. And that is the direction of our economic planning. And then we want to increase the trust that we have in government. And if you observe what has happened in the last few days, the last few months that we've been here, we've kept to our word. Part of what we are doing today, just to increase this trust that we are here to do what is the best for the country.
And still from the State House, President Tinubu has pledged his support for the National Population Commission, NPC, in conducting an accurate population and housing census in Nigeria. At a meeting with a delegation from the commission led by its chairman, the president emphasized the need for data integrity and urged the NPC to be prudent in its assignment. State House correspondent Adesuwa Moran has the details.
Nigeria's population census, which was last conducted 17 years ago, faced another setback as the digital housing and population census initiated by the Muhammadu Buhari administration was suspended at the last minute. A delegation from the National Population Commission, led by its chairman, visits the presidential villa to brief President Bola Tinubu on the commission's level of preparedness despite the suspension.
I'd like to say that Mr. President has graciously approved to support the commission in the conduct of the census. And our preparatory activities, though, were not stopped at all, but he has given us the courage, the impetus to upscale our preparation. So we will continue our preparation, and we'll hear from him eventually the date that the census will take place, because we made a submission to him that he will study before getting back to us.
A statement by the President's Special Advisor, Dele Alake, states that during the meeting, that President Tinubu expressed his support for the Commission, emphasizing the importance of accuracy and integrity in the census data. He urged the Commission to be prudent and determined in its assignment highlighting the significance of reliable data for Nigeria's national economic development programs. However, the Commission is asking for the 31 billion naira capital allocation in the 2023 budget to be released to enable it continue with preparation for the census. The total costs of the census, according to the Commission, after a methodology review, is estimated at 546.72 billion naira. Subsequently, the Commission is seeking the President's approval for an additional 225.2 billion naira to cover training and fieldwork allowances, among others.
As for the expenditure of 200 billion, no doubt we have incurred that expenditure. Conducting a digital census is not cheap. And mind you, this is like a foundational census. Subsequent censuses will not be this expensive because we've established a frame that we can only be updating. And going forward, with improvement in the ICT, we will employ more methodologies that will save money for us.
As Nigerians eagerly anticipate the announcement of a new date for the census, the Commission is appealing to the President to convene a stakeholders meeting to include the organized private sector and foreign partners to help secure the required funds. They highlight the potentials of the Commission's developed database in helping to contribute up to $14 billion in revenue generation to the government while supporting national planning and infrastructure development. From the State House, Abuja, Adesua Omoruan, Arise News.
Oh, we're fine.
I mean, a couple of things. So, we have a national tax policy of 2017 that pretty much spells out how things should go with taxations in this country. And I'll come back to that because I just use it as a premise. Most of the reviews done, especially that those have to do with extension of days, is in consonance with that national tax policy. That's what the executive order just enunciates, that you must give a 90-day threshold from the signing. So after those days, it's not a complete waiver. Those things will take effect. For instance, the Finance Bill 2023 will take effect. Secondly, when you look at the other taxes, the 5%, I remember on this table, we advocated strongly when the 5% tax was first talked about. And I think they listened, and I think we even had people from various telecoms representative bodies, and they talked about it, and Issa Pantami listened, and the president gave approval, that 5% tax should be scrapped. But I'm happy that executive order is taking care of it now. Also, the plastic tax, that's also a very important tax, to be able to curb the challenge we're having with single-use plastics and the likes. Very important for the environment, because when you look at even most of the problems caused by flooding today is because of single-use plastics. Most of our drainage are blocked by single-use plastic. I mean, you remember the case of Surulere. The last time, I think a couple of years ago, we had a big, massive flooding. And you get to see a lot of single-use plastic out of our drain flooding on the water. So, but he says he was still going to review it. But I think in going forward, and, good one on him, but I think in going forward, is reviewing in its entirety our tax framework to be able to avoid multiple taxations. Because when you look at our tax framework, there's so many taxes put together. Over 30, even more. 1% tax somewhere, 1% deduction here, 1% deduction. All of those things make your tax regime very convoluted for businesses to come and invest. But because we have a big market, if we are able to have a single collection point and it's shared across the tiers, just like we do with VAT, then we can go a whole step further. Or probably, a lot of people have mentioned the idea of increase VAT and drop all those 1%, 2% deductions and everything. Because when you even look at the funding of the students' loans, it's extra taxation to the system. Deductions from here, deductions from there and all of that. No. Because you can actually use taxation as a tool to be able to bring about investment. And a case study is Ireland. Ireland had year-on-year economic growth because of how they did taxation. In fact, there are some copious materials that say that there are some tech companies that did taxation deal with Ireland to the tune of about 12-13%. And that's how they were able to grow the economy. Today, Dublin is a hub for a lot of tech businesses just because of taxation. And when you look at it, just across the pond in England, they don't get a lot of that in taxation. Because, obviously, you know the corporate income tax is quite high. So if we can use that model, drop that level of taxation or make it better, then we can do a lot. Recently, the OECD was trying to push a global tax agenda of about 15% corporate income tax. If we rejig our systems here, a lot of people have kicked here, we can't do 15%, maybe 20, 25% thereabout. Harmonize in such a way to be able to drive in investors. Concerning the population, yes, very good. I'm happy President Tinubu gave a nod to that. Because we more than need it, and we should provide the fund, because we ought to have done the population census before the election so that this administration will have something to plow with. But it doesn't have something to plow with here. So if we can do the census now, so we can have empirical data to be able to plan with and be able to make further projections of the future. Well needed.
Okay, let me start with the population census, population and housing census. This was supposed to have taken place in April 2023. Nigerians kicked, saying that, well, while we understand the case for it, the timing was wrong. Then, of course, it was moved to May 3 to May 7. But at the end of the day, it was postponed indefinitely, leaving the challenge of population census as something that the new administration will have to deal with. The position, lumping the population census together with the election by most people was that, look, in an election year, it wouldn't make sense to go and create another crisis. Population having been very contentious in this country since the first population census was conducted in this country. Now, the second point, therefore, is that with the new administration, the chairman of the Population Census Commission has now gone to see the president. What is he asking for? He's asking for more money. He's asking for an additional 200 billion to be able to conduct the census. You will recall that originally the budget for the census submitted to the federal government was about 869 billion naira. Now, the federal government, according to Clement Agba, who was then the Minister of State for Finance and National Planning, said government had released about 46%, but our government didn't have enough money. And our government would not even mind if people can make donations in kind and cash. So the federal government of Nigeria was even going to go cap in hand. So it's understandable that the chairman of the Population Commission is going back now to President Tinubu to say, we will need more money. We have recruited quite a number of people. They said they've done enumeration, they've done demarcation, they've trained about 60,000 persons, but they will need about 1 million persons as facilitators and enumerators. Well, President Tinubu, I'm sure, understands this, having been part of the last exercise when he was governor in Lagos State. And he has promised to support, because he also acknowledges the importance of population census. The last time we conducted census in this country was in 17 years ago.
2006.
17 years ago, so it was 17 years ago. So Nigeria had been long overdue for census, because you can't plan without data. And you can't even invest properly without data. More people have joined this population. We've been working on estimates. We are over 200 million. We're this figure. So there must be certainty. There must be clarity. And this MPC is promising what it calls digital census, or what it calls green census. Whatever that means, we need to know how many we are in this country. So we recommend to President Tinubu to take a look at the request and to do an audit of what had been done previously. After all, they had set up a template to conduct census by May 3 to 7. So what suddenly happened? How much did they get eventually? All of that audit will be necessary. As for the executive orders on taxation, let's stress the point that what President Tinubu has done is to suspend and to align the various taxes with the law, what the law says, the 2017 National Tax Policy, which gives room for affected businesses to plan. And so that clarity that the government is trying to introduce is important. 2, President Tinubu had promised while he was giving his inaugural speech that he was going to harmonize, the tax regime. When this day newspaper did a review of 30 days of Tinubu in office. One of the things this day newspaper pointed out was the challenge of multiple taxation, which have become a threat to businesses. So what the government has done now is to take a look at this multiple taxation and reduce the burden on the poor and also on manufacturers. The third thing is also to create a more business-friendly environment. The fourth thing is to reassure the private sector of the government's support for it. And five also is to address, the challenge of clarity. Now, it is not surprising that the various stakeholders are very excited and they are happy. From NECA to NASIMA to the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. You recall that the president of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, Otumba Francis Meshiuyi, was on this same program, where he pointed out that, look, businesses are paying over 50 taxes in this environment, and that makes things difficult. And on top of it, at a point, there was threat to hike electricity tariff. So all of this, commendation that has been given by the affected stakeholders will be with the hope, as Special Advisor Revenue, Zacchaeus Adedeji pointed out, will help to increase productivity. And that Adedeji's emphasis on productivity is very important. This economy has to be more productive. It is when we are more productive that we can address the issue of cost. And revenue, again, Adedeji was saying, the revenue that they are seeking, they don't intend to introduce more taxes. They intend to harmonize and to deepen trust in government. That, I think, is also an intelligent point that he made. How do we build trust? And that trust, as he pointed out, let me underline another point he made, is that they have a blueprint for ensuring careful management of taxes in the country. That will be useful. So again, President Tinubu has taken another, a very good move, which endears him to the various stakeholders. But the emphasis is that this is a suspension, because an executive order, as I keep saying, is an administrative handmaiden. It's not law unto itself. Yeah. Because if you have to review the laws, you have to go back. However, there's a suggestion that the president may also have to take a look at the 7.5% VAT on diesel, which has taken the cost of diesel up, and to see that there is monitoring to make sure that those businesses that have already transferred costs, particularly the telecom operators, would also make sure that the benefit comes down, at least within the window, until government takes a decision one way or the other about those taxes.
All right, I'll just talk about the green tax that's been suspended, especially with the executive order signed by the president. As has been said, one of the things that was hailed as part of a good move in Nigeria achieving its green, pursuing its green agenda is the doing away with single-use plastic. Nigeria is not the only country that has introduced a green tax. In other countries around the world, this is introduced to discourage the littering and the clogging of drainages and systems by these single-use plastics. So this includes your plastic bottles, nylon bags, pure water nylon bags and the likes. Bags that you use to shop and things like that. In other parts of the world, what is being done is that they use these, you use your plastics, or you're encouraged to use your plastic bags again and again rather than using and disposing of once. It builds a culture of responsibility towards making your environment greener. And so whilst I do understand in terms of the other taxes that have been discussed, I think this is one to be revisited. I do understand that at this time in Nigeria, in terms of the current economic realities, what we do not want to be is to be overburdened with taxes. Hence the need to perhaps reevaluate some of the provisions of the Finance Act of 2023. The Finance Act itself, when it was signed by the president, one of his shall we say, valedictory signings before he left office this year, had been criticized by a number of analysts, especially with regards to the multiple taxations. In fact, bodies like NECA, NASIMA, Alton had come out to speak against this. We had a conversation with the former DG of LCCI talking about how businesses, particularly small businesses in Nigeria, are overburdened with taxes. In fact, NECA puts it that the number of taxes that small businesses in Nigeria have to pay are over 50. And in looking at the critical role that the private sector plays in achieving the Tinubu government's economic policies in terms of pushing for a higher GDP, pushing for more employment, there has to be synergy between the government and the private sector, and the government needs to be seen, and not just to be seen, but to actually provide an enabling environment for businesses to thrive. Small businesses and bigger businesses. And an issue that's come up a number of times is this multiple taxation and the fact that businesses are overburdened with taxes, aside from the other challenges or issues that they have to deal with. We talk about power, we talk about access to loans. These are other issues that ought to be dealt with. So this has obviously been welcomed. Now, with regards to the population census, recall, as has already been said, that in May of this year, the chairman of the commission had said they'd spent over 200 billion out of the 800 billion naira that was allocated in the budget of 2023 for population census. What they're saying to the president now is that they need over 500 billion naira to complete the exercise, which the president seems to have, indirectly or unofficially said they would go ahead with it. But what I'd ask for or push for is an evaluation or an audit of how much, or the 200 billion naira that was spent, how it was spent, what it was used for, so that we understand, we know that the amount, they said they used it for training, to get materials, to map the country, that's fine. But in this era of cutting down on spending and ensuring that we cut down corruption to its barest minimum, we must also independently audit how this money was spent before more money is allocated to this process. There's no need to talk about how important it is for economic planning and also for governments to understand how to respond to the needs of its people. And so definitely a welcome development, but looking at the amount of money allocated, this has to be magnified.